Hey guys, this is Achilles with the Rollout Reviews, bringing you another LBX review. This time it is Hyperfunction Achilles, or Achilles, as they like to call it in the show, because they're just silly like that. Now, Achilles is the lead LBX for the first half of the first season of Danball Senki back in 2011. At the time, the kits were halfway decent, but ultimately flawed. They relied a lot on stickers, and the quality just wasn't on par with what it's like today. It was sort of just finding its roots in the model kit line. Now, this is a newer version of the model kit that came out actually pretty recently. It is sort of what I like to call the equivalent of a master grade in the Gunpla Gundam terminology as for model kits. It's a lot more detailed, a lot more articulated, and most notably has a full inner frame, which is a very cool feature. Now, before we take a look at all of the details of the kit itself, I want to take a minute to talk about the building process. Now, obviously, the first thing you're going to see when you open this up is bags full of sprues, and that's no surprise because this is a model kit line. But the first three sprues you're going to see are these ones, and they make up the entirety of the inner frame of this guy. All of the other sprues make up the armor frame that goes over the top. Now, this is a lot more complex than your usual LBX kit. There's a lot more sprues, a lot more parts, and it's a bit more involved. But if it makes any sense, it's not at all more complex. It's not at all more difficult to build. I don't even know what I'm saying to myself at this point. It's a little hard to explain, but get this guy, build it, you'll understand. It's a nice complexity. It's a nice balance between not being too difficult and not being too easy. Now, the instruction booklet, it is actually a booklet this time instead of the normal pamphlet, is still very, very easy to follow. Nice color steps. However, I guess it just assumes if you're delving into this line, you already kind of know how to build a model kit. So it doesn't really tell you exactly what parts you're going to need a lot of the time. It just kind of shows you them and go find them on the sprue kind of a deal. So a little bit harder to follow, but still very appealing looking. On the back here, you have a color guide if you want to paint this. Shows you what paints to buy, and it has the product images. Now, usually I would say that you're going to have to paint this to get it to look this good. Straight out of the box, you're probably not going to get something that looks like this. However, in this case, that's not entirely true. It looks pretty much like this. Maybe this looks a little bit better because this actually is painted. There's a little more detail picked out. But when you open this up, put it together, it looks pretty freaking good. Now, as for stickers, it doesn't have many at all. On the LBX itself, right out of the box, only 4 stickers are put on, and they're very, very tiny. It does come with this sticker sheet here that has some technical decals on it, but these aren't actually accurate to the show at all. So I guess this is just if you want it to look a little more involved, but I personally don't care for these. However, if you want to apply those, and to help you apply the stickers that actually are relevant to the animation model, it gives you this little tool. It's a little wedge thing, very tiny, easy to drop, but it's got a very smooth edge and a sort of bigger edge over here. This is just about the greatest thing ever. I actually use these to put the stickers on my other LBX kits because it really does help. It's much better than a toothpick. You can sort of get it underneath the sticker very easily, smooth it out. Extremely useful tool, a lot more useful than you'd think. So let's take a look at the inner frame. So here is the bare bones form of Achilles. Now in Danball Senki, pretty much every single LBX has a frame like this. They have a versatile, customizable frame that they put armor over the top of. Unfortunately, the Hyperfunction line is the only model kit line that actually represents this in a toy form. The main line tries to kind of represent that by having parts be removable and swappable, but it doesn't quite have the same feel to it. This is a very, very tiny thing here. It gains a lot of bulk when you put the armor over top of it, but this is just, compare it to my hands. It's extremely tiny, but it has an extreme amount of articulation and absolutely phenomenal detail all around. There are some joints here just for when the armor frame is attached, like these skirt pieces, but really exceptional detail all around. When you put the armor frame on, the feet actually have to be swapped, but that's really the only thing that has to be swapped at all. Everything else fits inside the armor very nicely. The only stickers on this whole thing are the eyes, but they're very minimal. Don't intrude in any way. It does have the little chip in the chest, like the mainline models do. However, this time it's a translucent plastic and is extremely, extremely detailed. You can actually take the chip out and swap them between LBXs if you want to get really technical in your customization, but it is there. Nice feature, I suppose. Not something I use a whole lot, but if you like it, again, it is there. Now, I would put the armor frame over top of it in front of the camera, but it takes a lot of time, and I think it'd be a bit boring. If you want to see how it's done, I'm sure there are several videos on YouTube, several reviews of this that do just that. But to save a little time, I am going to skip that step and just take a look at it all armored up. And here is Achilles all armored up. Now it's worth saying that this is very much a model kit. The normal LBX models are a little more toy-like. But this is very clearly meant to be built, put on a shelf, and just look awesome sitting there. Play with it too much, and the joints might get a little loose over time. Likewise, if you swap the armor too often, the little pegs that hold the whole thing together could lose their friction, and he could start falling apart, and that is no good. Now, when it's all said and done, Achilles looks amazing. I might be a little bit biased because it's a little cliche to like the main character's LBX. It's a little cliche to like the first LBX ever the most. But I honestly have to say Achilles might be my favorite LBX design out of them all. I love the colors. I love the vibrant look of him and his whole Trojan warrior design, which is very appropriate for the name Achilles. Let's take a look at some of the details. Now, this improves upon the original Achilles kit very much so. All of these white details are actually plastic, whereas on the original kit they were stickers, same as these details up here and in here. And the cape on this guy is actually sort of a cloth material. It's sort of a weird cloth material. The closest thing I can relate this to is sort of the clothy paper kind of stuff that Lego uses in some of their sets. They use it to make tents and sometimes wings, but it's the same kind of stuff, a little actually higher quality in this case, but that's the closest thing I can relate it to, like I said. On the original Achilles and most of the original LBX models, their capes were actually made of the same stuff the instructions were made out of. Paper. The back page of the instruction booklet would have a little cutout, and you'd snip that with your scissors and put it around their neck, and you're good to go. Very kind of lazy, but this, thankfully, is much higher quality. It has the A there for Achilles. Little sort of pins to hold it into this plastic back here, which is attached to a joint. Those are a little inaccurate, but nothing too bad there. It also sits a little far from the body, unfortunately, and just the way the joint is, it makes some of the poses a little unnatural looking, but it's not the end of the world. He has the nice crystal in his chest there. The V, I don't really know what it stands for, honestly. I can only assume it stands for victory. In Japanese culture, they have the very familiar peace sign. It's not actually a peace sign, it's V for victory, and he has this super mode called V mode, where he turns all orange and he becomes super fast and powerful, and like I said, I can only assume that that V stands for the same thing. Little red dots there, which aren't stickers, they're actually plastic showing through, and same kind of principle on the head. Everything there is plastic layers showing through, which is fantastic. The only stickers actually on the armor frame itself are these little black ones here on the thighs, which is great. So articulation with this guy, the head is on a ball joint and also on a hinge, so you can get kind of this movement here. Very, very nice. The shoulders, they're on ball joints, so you can get this kind of thing going on. They go in and out on that ball joint, but also have another hinge. The shoulders also have a joint there to get them out of the way. Just because of the design of this guy, the shoulders get in the way quite often. It's not a problem with the model, it's just a problem with his design. The elbows are actually double jointed, so you can get some really, really nice movement there. And the wrists have ball joints. This little bit comes off actually quite often, so you might not want to mess with the hands all that much. He also has a swivel right here. Now, in the waist, I would have liked to see a ball joint, but it's only a cut joint here. At least it rotates. The skirt armor is on little hinges, so it can go out here, and it can also rotate. It's a swivel, not a ball joint, but it'll get out of the way in most poses you want to get him in. The legs, they're on ball joints at the waist, or the hips, rather. Go forward and back, in and out, all that. They also have a cut joint here. The knees, likewise, just like the elbows here, are also double jointed, so you can get a lot of movement out of those as well. And then the ankle are on a ball joint. Ankles are on a ball joint, rather. Lot of tilt going on there. Forward and back, they rotate, all that good stuff. And they also have a little bit of toe movement, which isn't something you usually see on LBXs. So, exceptional articulation, a lot better than your usual budget kits. And what you're paying for really shows through. Now, it does have an exceptional amount of detail. However, I think the most impressive thing about it is that it manages to fit all of that detail and the whole inner frame in a body that isn't actually much bigger than your normal LBX kit. It still retains the 1-to-1 scale, show accurate size here. Here's a comparison with Dot Phaser, and as you can see, he is a little bit taller, and I realize that Dot Phaser is in this pose here, but around the same size, which is very, very nice. Not much more I can say about that. For accessories, he has several optional hands. You have these ones that are open here. I don't really use these very often. You do have to swap the backs here. There is a reason for them coming off, so I don't recommend gluing them on. But yeah, you have these, one for each hand. Once again, I don't use these very often because generally I have him posed with his lance and his shield. His shield is very, again, Trojan soldier looking, even though Achilles actually wasn't from Troy, but Spartan. There we go. Attach this on here. Pretty simple, just a handle. You can hold on to that. Not a whole lot of functionality going on there. And then he has his Achilles Lance, which again is another huge improvement of this kit over the original. The original Achilles Lance was just a big piece of gray plastic, which obviously this is a lot better. Now, he can hold it with this hand, but he also comes with this. Sort of looks like a thumbs up hand here, but it sort of has a different positioning in the wrist, tilts the wrist back a little bit, and it allows him to sort of hold the lance a little more naturally. So the hands just pop off, and you can just put the lance here in the back of the hand. There actually is nothing there until you put the cover over it. And with this hand option, he holds the lance, like I said, a little more naturally, at a more natural angle. And there's Achilles all armed up and ready to go. And once again, the detail is no less than on the figure itself, on these accessories. They do look very, very nice. And with the level of articulation this guy has, pretty much you can do anything imaginable. Let's just get him into a cool pose here. And there you go. Now, to be perfectly honest, I recommend this LBX model kit above all others. This is the perfect way of getting into this series if you haven't already. It's a very iconic character. Pretty easy to build while still being complex. Lots of vibrant colors, articulation, and playability with the full inner frame, the accessories. Everything you could want is here, and he looks incredible. Now, there are other ways of getting this character. He is the granddaddy of all LBXs, the RX-78-2 of Danball Senki. You can get the original model kit, which this transcends above in so many ways, or you could get the Z mode, which is not a model kit. It's actually a high-end action figure. It'll probably stay together a lot better. It still has the same amount of articulation, detail, the inner frame, and actually comes with a lot more accessories. But I still think this is better for several reasons. First, this has an authentic feel to it. In the show, the armor frames are model kits, mostly to sell toys, but they are model kits, and you putting this together yourself sort of adds that authenticity to it that you don't get from the Z mode. Also, the color scheme on this is a lot better in my opinion. The Z mode sort of takes a very shiny approach to it. It's got a lot of shiny paints that are very over-glorified and not accurate to the show, whereas this matte finish is quite accurate to the on-screen model. And third, and most importantly, this is a lot cheaper. A very, very affordable kit, all things considered. While it's the same size as all of the other LBXs, you're still pretty much paying for the same amount of plastic. It's got so much more detail, and it's so much more involved that it's definitely, definitely worth it. Now, pun fully intended when I say this, this is the best way of getting the full Little Battlers experience. There, I said it. Anyway, that is about it, guys, and this is IX signing off.